So to round out the evening, I want to talk about voting. You guys are getting ready to vote in a few days. I understand, what is it, less than 2 weeks away, something like that? Voting day's coming up, and I've been posting a number of articles that seems to be rather inflammatory lately, and people really aren't liking what I have to say. Some people are kind of agreeing, but still like, yeah, we're going to vote anyway. And it has to do with just the general... Okay. The general principles are that taxation is theft. I don't know if you guys agree with that, disagree with that, but I start from there and I work my way out from there. And I am a firm believer that taxation is in fact theft. Trump 2020. All right. Agree. Okay, so if you look up the definitions of taxation and you look up the definition of theft, they're damn near the same definition, the only difference being legality. And it was brought to my attention recently that actually the legality isn't even real. There's no legal standard for taxation. There's just not. Any of the tax laws you look into, there's nothing in there that says like, hey, this is constitutional, this is legal, this is a thing we can do. But somehow we've just kind of agreed to it somewhere along the line, and then we've had multiple generations grow up with that very same process going on, and it's normalized now and nobody thinks about it. If taxation is theft, what is money printing? Also theft, especially if your money supply is controlled by one entity. There should be a free in order to recognize that there's an actual free market, I heard a long time ago, is you need to have a free market in money. And that did not make a lick of sense to me at all until recently, when I realized that, money itself is a commodity that needs to be able to be traded freely. And as long as somebody's controlling the money supply, you don't have a free market. So you want to talk about capitalism and capitalists ruining everything, I would challenge you to point me to a single source of capitalism utopia at all, or any example where there's actually been true capitalism. So let me get back to it. Taxation theft. So I made the jump from taxation being theft and recognizing the immorality of it, and recognizing that the government's only sole source of income is through theft, is through taxation. There's no other possible way, I don't want to say there's no other possible way. There currently is no other way that they are funded. Dan says, never forget they only got income taxes passed as an amendment after promising they'd only do it by 1% on the top 1%. How'd that work out? It's exactly true. That's how all these things start. They turn that heat on real low and then they work it up. So you start with taxation as theft. You recognize that the government can only operate via theft. And then at some point after hearing these arguments, I did end up becoming an anarchist, because it's like I can't justifiably say I'm a Democrat or a Republican or any other party, because the ends for me don't justify the means. As I said in a post on Facebook, if you don't follow me on Facebook, don't bother, because I'm not going to be there much longer. Go ahead and follow me elsewhere. But as I said, I really don't care if the money is going to some kind of underfunded orphanage ran by rocking chair bound elderly quilting ladies. I don't care what the ends are. It's wrong to steal to begin with. So anything that happens from that point forward, I'm not going to sit there and participate in a system where I have to choose the lesser of two evils, because it's still evil. I'm not going to participate. If I can minimize my level of involvement with government, then that's what I'll do. Slowly but surely, I'm trying my best to minimize my exposure to government. I try to do everything as free as I can. Lady Della says, I've been libertarian for more than 20 years. The private sector has better local solutions. Absolutely. Because they know the community. So we've got an immoral system that I'm trying to minimize my exposure to. And in order to vote is literally participating in an immoral system. I don't have any need for it. And quite frankly, shame on any of you who, after hearing this, still feel the need to go vote, because you are now complicit in an evil system. You're complicit in stealing money from people against their will and trying to make yourselves feel good about it that, well, I'm picking the lesser of two evils. I'm picking the guy that's going to go ahead and do the things I want him to do. Sorry, you're still participating in evil. This is from plato.stanford.edu. It says one major argument for compulsory voting is that we might call the demographic or representativeness argument. The argument begins by noting that in voluntary voting regimes, citizens who choose to vote are systematically different from those who choose to abstain. The rich are more likely to vote than the poor, the old are more likely to vote than the young, the men are more likely to vote than the women, and in many countries, ethnic minorities are less likely to vote than ethnic majorities. More highly educated people are more likely to vote than less highly educated people. Married people are more likely to vote than non-married people, etc., etc., etc. If you have a voluntary system, you have this situation where the type of people that are willing to vote are the ones that are going to be in control. And I almost wonder, I don't want to hold it against people too much. I say shame on you, and I don't look down on people who vote, because I do kind of understand part of it is you're scared of your fellow citizens. You're scared of those people that are going to vote, regardless of what the arguments are. You're scared of everybody else is going to vote the way that you would hope not to vote if you did vote. So you feel like you're kind of still in a compulsory system, regardless of the fact that you have the choice not to vote or not. You're scared of people. You're scared of other people, and that's understandable because other people are fucking stupid. What was it? Dan Carlin was talking about how, you think about the average person and how dumb they are. Well, half of them are dumber than that. And they get to vote. That's a problem. Facebook actively censors opinions it doesn't like and promotes corrosive causes. That's absolutely true. This is why we're on other social media platforms. I'd argue transitional woke corporations such as Facebook are as damaging to society as the Yeah, and there's definitely something to be said about that too. And here's the thing: would these companies be as corrosive if there wasn't such an incentive for them to be corrosive in the political sphere? If the political sphere wasn't a thing we had to contend with in the first place? So that's the question. If we didn't have to feel like, okay, I can understand where they're coming from. If I feel like, okay, this Trump guy is literally going to be the end of our world as we know it. People are going to die in the streets if Trump gets elected again. I have this very powerful platform that I can use to push the election one way or another. I have some say in this. I can do it where people don't know I'm doing it. So, somebody brought that up to me, the invisible ring kind of theory. I forgot what the theory was called, where if you had an invisible ring, all of a sudden your morals would go out the window. You'd go ahead and just do whatever the hell you wanted to do. And I wonder if there's some level of that, where they kind of have this invisibility cloak about them, where they can kind of get away with it. Of course, some of it's starting to come out. Facebook can enforce a tyranny, and yet because it's a private company, libertarians don't criticize it. I'm not really sure what the solution is. I've never claimed to have all the solutions. That's one thing that drives me nuts as an anarchist. Well, without government, how do we do this and that? I don't give a shit how we do it. All I know is it's wrong to steal from people, and we need to fucking change it. Find another way. We're smart. We can figure it out. Stacy asks, what's your opinion on monopolies and antitrust laws? I have no problem with monopolies at all. Because, I have no problem with monopolies in a free market scenario. And if you have a problem with monopolies, then you should definitely have a problem with government, because they are the ultimate monopoly. They have the monopoly on force and control and power within a geographical boundary. That's literally what they are. They are the ultimate monopoly. And you can't then go to that monopoly and say, listen, we have a problem with private market monopolies. We're going to need you to go ahead and stop that, okay? And we're going to need you to go ahead and head on over there and break up Facebook for me, would you? Thanks, sweetie. It makes no logical sense when you actually think about the mechanics of what you're asking to be done. It's like, people, you gotta take 10 seconds to think this through. Like, think about what you're doing, who you're asking. What's the goal here? Now, as I said before, I do not have a problem with monopolies in general. Because if somebody has achieved a monopoly over something, it's probably for good reason, for good cause, because they have literally the best service, literally the best price, and people are fucking thrilled with their product and their service or what have you. And they have just earned it. That's not to say they can't, there's no way for them to cheat around it. And, I don't know. There's a whole philosophy behind it, of course. Again, I don't have all the answers, but I do want to read this piece that I wrote earlier, a couple of them, because I think they really highlight my points here better than I can do just talking. I never thought about monopolies that way, Daniel. You've given me something to think about. Oh, I am so sorry. I apologize. We try really, really hard not to give people to think about, give people things to think about here. That's not our show, man. It's not what we do. All right. So voluntary versus involuntary is how I titled this one. And no matter which way you spin it or attempt to justify it, taxation by definition is compulsory and immoral. It is legalized theft. The ends do not justify the means. I frankly don't care if the money goes directly to starving children with anime eyes in an underfunded orphanage ran by rocking chair-bound knitting grannies. People have managed to justify it by telling themselves the proceeds of taxation are going to a good cause. That they're okay with it because they have no illusions that they somehow, through voting, get to have a say in how it's spent. Hint, you don't. These are by-the-book symptoms of Stockholm Syndrome. Okay? Number 1, the victim develops positive feelings toward the person holding them captive or abusing them, in this case, the state. Number 2, the victim develops negative feelings toward police, authority figures, and anyone, like me, who might be trying to help them get away from their captor. They may even refuse to cooperate against their captor, like pledging allegiance, for example. Number 3, the victim begins to perceive their captor's humanity and believe that they have the same goals and values. Hint, they don't. They very much don't. All right. So there was a time in history when people looked at slavery the way people currently look at taxation. And in the future, people will be mortified and appalled that we used to operate society this way. And I do firmly believe that there's this level of immorality in theft that, like, it's literally one of the 10 commandments, one of the highest regarded Christian values. And the very same Christians can then turn around completely, like, devoid of the fact of what they're doing here and say, oh, go Trump 2020. It's like, dude, you gotta think your shit. You can't compartmentalize your religion and your government. You gotta be able to have some philosophy that can encompass everything. Like, you gotta have a philosophy that encompasses your parenting, your government, your schooling, your religion. Like, all of that stuff has to kind of work. Otherwise, you're kind of like got this cognitive bias thing going on over here going, well, theft is not okay for me, but it's perfectly okay for old Uncle Sam. Because I need stuff and people are hurting and we got to help them. And I got politicians telling me I'm going to get some free stuff. The Dems publics run on this let me take care of you crap. Don't think for yourself. That's my government job. Yeah, and as long as that's the job, like, what incentive do you have? Like, if your job is trying to help people and save people from themselves and trying to come up with policies that make life better for folks, and you're getting paid by these very folks that you're apparently trying to save, and you're getting it regardless of whether you actually save them or not, what incentive do you have to actually save them? What incentive do you have to go in and say, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and pretend to help you. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to pretend to help you. But really, we're not going to solve anything. We're just going to go ahead and keep making matters worse because I don't want to lose my job. I got some cushy benefits here. I'm not getting rewarded for solving problems here. So why would I solve the problems? Like, why in the world would I want to solve your problems? I just need to give you the illusion that I'm solving the problems. See, and then we've got the problem solved, right? As long as you get paid, you stop caring. Now, that's not true necessarily because, say, if you apply that to a private market scenario, Like, for example, I get paid for going out and helping customers with remodels and helping them upgrade their homes and helping them, install a giant, complicated bathtub that's been a pain in my ass for the last week. But if I go in there and do a good job, I have an incentive because then I get to keep working. But if I know that those people, no matter what I do, I'm going to be able to go back to their house and keep working over and over and over again and keep taking money from them, I have no incentive to do a good job. I want to have an incentive to do a good job because first of all, I feel pride in the work that I do. I think we do an excellent job. And for those customers to then go, man, that looks great. The customer says the other day, you guys are so honest. I do appreciate that, because people are nervous around, construction types. They don't know if we're being honest or not. Kind of like used car salesmen. They don't know if we're always being honest. They always feel like we're overcharging them. But you know what? I went and took a 2-hour trip up to Tullahoma, or an hour trip up to Tullahoma, an hour back, to pick up some floors on the cheap, some LVP laminate floors for them. Got it at $114. No tax weekend. It was awesome. It was cheaper than I had originally quoted them. They gave me some cash so I can go get it. I brought it back, gave them the receipt, gave them their change. I showed them exactly what I did for them, and they were thrilled. That right there was incentive for me because I know they're going to rehire me at some point. Next project they have in mind, they're going to come and call us up. And it's an incentive for them because they know that they're going to get what they want. I mean, it's a win-win for both sides. And it's basic, common, decency, really. Totally agree with private sector perspective. Government sector is a whole different story. Yeah. So just curious, lady, do you have a reason? Is there a reason why you do you feel like the government is necessary? At all, like period, for anything, even the bare minimum. Right. So this is the shame on you angle that I came up with. And let's see what you guys think about this, because I really am curious if I'm just being an asshole or if I'm actually making some sense here. So basically, it goes something like this. If you think it's okay to steal from me against my will, shame on you. If you think it's okay to elect someone to steal from me on your behalf because you're too scared to do it yourself, shame on you. If you think it's okay to quote-unquote vote about how best to spend the plunder from the pockets of the people, then shame on you. If you think it's okay to directly participate in the system of evil and immorality with full knowledge of the corruption from all sides, shame on you. I don't care how patriotic you think you are. I don't care how many flags you pledge to. I don't care how duty-bound you feel. I don't care which crook's name is proudly posted in your front yard. Shame on you. In light of new knowledge, as it was brought up earlier, you necessarily must change. If you hear a perspective that totally makes you go, oh, shit, don't ignore it. Look into it. Try to prove it wrong. Maybe I'm completely wrong, but here, as far as I could tell, I couldn't find any way to prove this wrong. Not to satisfy me anyway. I don't know. Maybe I just haven't seen the right textbook or heard the right podcast or whatever the case is. But if you still go to the voting booths on November 4th with full knowledge of what you're participating in after hearing this episode, after understanding and even agreeing that taxation is theft, after understanding and knowing all of the corruption that's drawn into the mainstream government state process, like at some point you have to change your behavior, or at least at the very least be honest, admit what you're doing. Just say, yeah, I'm okay. I feel like it is necessary to steal from people 100% because we need these roads. I'm perfectly okay with theft. I think theft's immoral, but I'm going to do it anyway. You have to say these things, or you're going to be constantly at odds with yourself and your own moral principles. If moral principles are important to you, then you got to change. Don't go vote on November 4th. Y'all been watching the Unframe of Mind show, where we have uncomfortable conversations without a condom. I've been your host, Daniel Wagner. And if you go vote November 4th, shame on you. All right.